From the moment I got into analysis of T20 cricket, there has been one thing that's bothered me more than pretty much anything else. And as you may have noticed, a lot of things actually bother me. But it was one of those early things that still really gets to me now. The big dip after the power play. Oh yeah, that big dip. And I obviously understand the maths here. There is a 150% rise in humans on the boundary. Straight away that should change how teams bat. There should be a slowdown of some kind. I have no problem with that. Well, that's kind of untrue. I basically want people to go a lot harder in T20 cricket as a general rule. But I understand that it's harder to hit boundaries with 5 out rather than 2. And think about all the batters out there that come into the situation fresh. Or maybe they just arrive in the 7 to 9 over mark. The field is out, wickets have fallen, the opposition is probably using their best spinner. There should be a lull of some kind after the power play. It should not be this long or this deep. At the moment we see a lull at the start of the 7th over, and the rate doesn't get back to what the last over of the power play is until the 16th. That's in the death. In the IPL it's slightly better than all T20, it's the 15th over. But that's still the death. There is clearly something not quite right here. And that's why players like Nicholas Pooran and Glenn Maxwell are in such demand, because they can transform the rates in this area of the game. But I am more interested in the openers. The guys up top actually have their own pattern, and it's a bit more dramatic. In the IPL, there is a 1.5 run drop from the 6th over to the 7th over. For the openers alone, that is a drop of 2 runs. You can see that the batters at 3 and 4 are not dropping off anywhere near as much. Now let's not burn all the openers, as 9 runs and over is certainly something that is hard to replicate. But it's also a massive drop no matter kind of how you look at it. Here's my thinking. Openers are set, they have faced probably somewhere between 12 and 24 balls by the time the power play finishes. They shouldn't be dipping like they are. In the IPL, I've just looked at the guys who've faced over 100 balls in each period, the first 6 overs and then the following 6 overs over the last 5 seasons. These are just openers. And there are openers who go crazy. This is the differential. If you're in the minus, that means you score quicker after the power play. So straight away that you can see most openers do not do that. You can see Shane Watson over here, and while his number looks really impressive, you do need some context. Watto went incredibly slow in the power play, striking at 110. It was clearly a team plan, because I can't see otherwise why he would ever strike at that kind of a rate. But once set, in the middle, he was a beast, striking at 170. Now when you factor in he was always going to face more balls in the power play than the middle, you can make up your own minds to whether it was worth having those slow starts for a player who goes crazy later on. You also have Mayank Agarwal here. I find him very fascinating because he's a short form opener. The average of openers in the IPL in the last 5 seasons is 10 higher than his mark, but he scores roughly the same rate. But I wonder if part of the reason teams like him is that he keeps going when he stays in. There is no handbrake mode. He doesn't chip the ball around. If he gets to the middle, he keeps going after the bowlers. Chris Gayle is another notable player here. There's nothing here that we wouldn't really expect from him. He has always been known as a slow starter, so you wouldn't expect him to be going huge in the power play. But especially as he's got older, he has looked to target certain matchups more. It makes sense that once the spinners come on, he goes crazy. And what's notable is so few batters actually score quicker against spinners than quicks right across the game, openers or not. 46 players have faced 200 balls of pace and spin in the IPL over the last 5 seasons. 10 of them are faster against spin than pace. But there are 9 batters who strike at over 26 quicker against pace than spin. So you can see how rare someone like Mayank Agarwal is. And here's Chris Gayle. He has the 5th best differential against spin. And you'll see Warner in the middle of this group of elite openers who are basically as good with the 5 men out as the 2 men. But it might be worth travelling down to the other end here. Because look at Butler. He can be explained here by the fact that he loves facing pace and will face less of it after the power play. Faf du Plessis is another one, as is Parthiv Patel. It's quite clear that there is a bit of a pattern here. It's not just that the players at this end are going harder outside the power play. They're just good players of spin, and the ones at this end generally are not. But they are still set batters. And it's one thing not smashing spin when you first get to the wicket. It's a whole other thing doing it when you are set and striking at 145 already. So really the most interesting players here are the ones who are actually good against spin and are choosing to slow down. But remember, these are differentials, and as Watto showed us earlier, they can be slightly misleading. you could see what a massive outlier Watto was. He opened like no one else. But I want you to focus on Faf du Plessis for a minute. You can see him down here, very slow as well. But let's see how he goes in the middle over. Watto goes from last to first. Faf goes from very ordinary to dead last. He is barely scoring at more than a run a ball here. This is an overseas batter for a top franchise, and he has just been wasting balls after the power play. And if you think, well, this is okay, he's not losing wickets and he's keeping the score ticking along. England in ODI cricket don't lose many wickets from overs 10 to 40, and they score it only a fraction slower than what Faf does in these 6 overs of a T20 game. I can't see why any T20 batter would ever have to slow down this much. And Faf doesn't see why anyone would have to do that, because he's actually changed his game as well. He's gone from the most stoic and turgid regular IPL opener to a bit of a dasher. Maybe that's pushing it, but he's certainly quicker. We have seen a lot of players of late making huge changes to how they played the game. I've mentioned Shikhar Dhawan's name many times. But most batters don't change their style. So you can see by looking at Virat Kohli, who is near Faf, that there are big name players who are really slow down here. That is a lot of money and talent to essentially be treading water in the middle overs. And with Kohli, you can see that he keeps his strike rate against the pacers roughly the same, but his drop off against the spinners outside the power play is pretty big. There is also a whole class of player that we haven't talked about here. Guys like Josh Buttler, who slow down, but that is only because they were going so fast in the power play. Like in this same period, Buttler has just been absolutely amazing in the power play. And you can see that while he drops back a little, his dip rate is still far better than most players at their best. He's a player that is completely maximising the power play and holding really firm in the overs after. Because he's going so fast, it's clear that it's going to be harder for him to keep up this rate. And so if that happens for him, is that happening for other lesser batters? Well, weirdly, not really. Overall, openers actually hold pretty firm at their numbers. It gets quite fun when you look at it. All in all, openers actually do score at pretty much the exact same rate from overs 1 to 6 as they do from 6 to 12 in the IPL. It's just really that dip takes them so long to overcome. They ramp up in overs 7 to 12 the same way that they usually would in the power play. Openers in the 6th over score at 9.21 runs. They don't reach that mark again until the 14th over. I think that we all fundamentally get that there should be a slowdown of some kind. But should it be this slow and for this long? I say lift the dip.